Well everyone, it's time for us to go and take a look at the OnePlus 11 and compare it against the OnePlus 9 and see which specific phone is the better one for you. Now the OnePlus 9 did come out a few years ago, so it's definitely not the flagship it used to be, but I will say the OnePlus 9, OnePlus tried to do some really cool things with it, which was nice, but I will say the OnePlus 11 clearly is a better phone, but there is definitely a lot of overlap between these phones. So if you want to pick up the OnePlus 11 or the OnePlus 9, links will be down in the description. You can pick up either one of those phones from there, and you can help support the channel at the same time. Now starting off with the outside of both these phones, the OnePlus 9, which came out in 2021, on the front of this phone we have a 6.55-inch Fluid AMOLED display. It's a 1080p panel and it's a 120Hz screen. And when OnePlus made this phone with that panel, it was a very good panel. I had a pretty good time using it. I do think though, coming from the OnePlus 8, it really wasn't like that big of a difference. I feel like the OnePlus 8 had a really good display as well. I do believe that one was at 90Hz though, so this one was a little bit better, but it was still a really good panel. And personally, I had a really good time with this display. It was a whole bunch display, so there really wasn't anything crazy on the front, which was really nice too. So by far, this was a really good panel and I really enjoyed it. Now on the OnePlus 11, we are getting a little bit of a bigger 6.7-inch LTPO Fluid AMOLED display. So at this time, you can kind of say that it's a better panel. Is it substantially better by 1,000 yards? I don't even know why I said that. Probably not. It's definitely going to be a better panel for sure. But I do think at this moment, these panels are so good, you're not really probably going to notice too big of a difference. But they're both at 120Hz, which is really nice. And surprisingly, like I said, these panels, they're 2 years apart. I feel like OnePlus could have done a little bit of a better job kind of making some bigger differences, but they didn't really do it, so it's not a big deal. On the bottom, they have USB-C ports. Neither one of these phones have any sort of expandable storage, which is totally okay. And beyond that, I'm trying to think of what else on the sides, but there's really not much else. On the back though, we do have a bit of a different setup, and this is why I actually do think the OnePlus 11 is actually a very, very interesting looking phone. OnePlus, surprisingly, they made the back of this phone look very, very unique on the OnePlus 11. The OnePlus 9 had that standard camera setup that we basically see on a lot of different phones. You can see that we basically have, a dual camera setup, kind of like a triple one. And then we do have the, frosted glass back, which is beautiful. The phone feels very good. It definitely doesn't feel like a cheap phone by any means. But when you look at the OnePlus 11, you can tell that that phone looks substantially different. It looks so unique. And that is something I really did like about the OnePlus 11. For a few different OnePlus phones that, OnePlus has made, they made their phones look so different and they actually look very, very cool. The OnePlus 7T, in my opinion, looked very different. The OnePlus 7 even looked a little different. The OnePlus 7 Pro was unique. I like when they take these chances, and I definitely do think they make them stand out. The OnePlus 11 looks kind of like the OnePlus 10 in those phones, but it definitely looks better than the OnePlus 9 here. Now, on the outside, I think that kind of covers it up. There's not a whole lot else that are different. Both these phones kind of lack in the same area sometimes, so there's not really big movements there. But I do think beyond that, that kind of covers it up in that standpoint. Now, in the camera department, this was the one area back in 2020 when OnePlus made the OnePlus 9. They hyped up this phone like crazy. It wasn't even funny. They said this camera, best camera ever made. Not really, but they were stating that this camera was really great because you could film in 8K in the back, and they teamed up with Hasselblad at this time. I think that was the first time they teamed up with Hasselblad, or one of the more notable times. Since then, I think every phone they've had they've been competing with them or collaborating with them, which is really nice. On the back of the OnePlus 9, we have a 48 megapixel wide angle lens, a 50 megapixel ultra wide camera, and then a 2 megapixel monochrome camera. And on the back of the OnePlus 11, we have a 50 megapixel wide, 32 megapixel telephoto, and then a 48 megapixel ultra wide camera. So I'm really happy we now have the triple camera setup array that's proper. We have the zooming in, zooming out, and that center wide angle camera. Really, with the OnePlus 9, you were only getting a monochrome camera. You're only getting a wide and ultra wide, to be honest. Now, both these phones kind of take the L on the front. They both can only shoot 1080p video on the front of these phones, which is honestly very weird. I feel like OnePlus probably could have done a little bit of a better job here, and I feel like that's really the main issue I have with OnePlus phones. You can have the best back camera, but a majority of the time you're probably using that front-facing camera anyway on your phone, and if you can't even film 4K at 60 on the front, that's already kind of a massive setback, especially now in 2023. If you're a phone manufacturer, you have to be able to go ahead and make devices like that, and that's kind of the issue that we have with OnePlus. I will say the OnePlus 9's camera is still perfectly fine, it's still good, and the OnePlus 11 is definitely an improvement, but I still think like OnePlus could have easily put some sort of better front-facing camera here. They can put the best, 8K capability camera on the back, but if their front camera still isn't that good, they're not going to be taken seriously. Look at the Pixels. Look at the Pixel 1. That was a good camera. Pixel 2 was good too. And then the 3 and the 4, because they weren't improving the resolution frame rate, the 4K 60 on the back they didn't add, and the 1080p on the front, like you just get the same types of issues. So if I could lend some, guidance to OnePlus, just give us 4K on the front in some capacity. It doesn't even have to be 4K at 60. 4K is on the front is fine, and that will start swaying people's opinion. I like both these cameras, but I'd probably say that the OnePlus 11 camera is better, but I still think the OnePlus 9 camera is good too, but they just need to fix that front camera. Now in the software and the longevity portion, this is another interesting area, mostly because the OnePlus 11 is clearly going to outlast the OnePlus 9. I like Oxygen OS not as much as I used to. I do think the OnePlus 9 was the last phone to have like that, or like last official version of Oxygen OS that was really, really good. But I do think as of this point, there's really not too much to say. The OnePlus 11 clearly is going to outlast the OnePlus 9, which is great. You're going to have a long-lasting phone from that device, which is awesome. The OnePlus 9 is still going to be getting software updates for a little bit of time as well, so it's probably going to get maybe 1 or 2 more versions of Android. Maybe it'll be done, but even then, I'm not a fan of Oxygen OS really as much anymore as I used to be, and it's kind of sad. Like, it was a great version of software. Now it just seems like a skinned version of Android, even more so annoying than other ones, and maybe not as skinned as One UI, but still it's kind of up there. Now on the performance side, the OnePlus 9 internally had that Qualcomm Snapdragon 888 chipset inside of it with 8 gigs of RAM on the base model, but it did go up to 12 gigabytes of RAM. On the OnePlus 11, we have that new Snapdragon 8 Gen 2 chipset inside of it with 8 gigs of RAM on the base model, but it does go all the way up to 16 gigabytes of RAM, which is honestly pretty crazy to have that much RAM inside of a phone like this. Now, to say all that, I will probably tell you, with a phone like the OnePlus 11, you're definitely going to be getting a very solid device from there. Don't get me wrong. It's going to be a very, very, fast performing phone. And I still think the OnePlus 9 is a very good and fast performing phone too. You're not really going to feel like you have a slow phone on either one of these devices, especially considering that you have 120 Hz displays on both these phones, which is a really nice touch. Now, personally for me, with a phone like the OnePlus 9, I think this is still very fast. I've owned a lot of devices that have that Snapdragon 888 chipset, and it was a really good performing chipset for the time. I think the 8 Gen 2, though, is definitely a much more powerful and much faster chipset for sure. Really, the only issue you're going to be running into maybe is the optimization, and because it's the newest chipset, there were a lot of complaints later on with the Snapdragon 8 Gen 1 of it not being as optimized. So the same thing could happen with the 8 Gen 2, we just have to give it a little bit more time. But from the main consensus that I've heard, the 888 was pretty well received. So I think that's a pretty good thing going for the OnePlus 9. But I think both phones are very fast. You're not really going to feel like you have a very slow performing phone from either one. And whether you're doing gaming or whether you're doing whatever, you're going to be getting a really fast performing phone basically from both these devices, which is really nice. So, and that kind of covers it up there. In the battery life segment, they both have a little, like the 4500 mAh battery on the OnePlus 9 and the 5000 mAh battery on the OnePlus 11. Definitely good sized batteries for sure between both. They both, are very capable in that standpoint, which is really nice as well. So to kind of sum up this whole entire video, what I'll tell you is I think both these phones are good, they're great. The OnePlus 9 is a little bit older. It's gone down in the used market quite a bit. So it may make a little bit more sense, like if you want to buy that phone, go for it. It's a little bit cheaper now. The OnePlus 11, it's the successor. It's going to be faster. It's going to be better. But I don't know. I think that, fervor I used to have for OnePlus is kind of gone. I'm not really too sure what's going on with their company right now. Hopefully they get better though. I used to love OnePlus phones, but I think between these two, they're good phones. They're not really like a big reason why I choose one over the other. You still have other phone manufacturers like Samsung out there that are still making really good phones. Even Pixels are still really good. So that's kind of how I see these phones comparing. If you have any other thoughts or questions, let me know in the comment section below. Hit the like button, that would mean so much, but definitely hit that subscribe button. More importantly than everything else, I love every single one of you guys. Hopefully I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace out till then.